All right, welcome to the All Access Entertainment Podcast. I'm your host, Joseph Bruen, and what a special guest that we have this week. None other than Jameson Winger himself, Mr. John DiGiacomo. John, thanks so much for taking the time this week.
Love to do it, Joe.
It's a pleasure to have you here and kind of take a little deep dive into your career and all the things that you've accomplished over the years and what you got going on. So looking forward to this.
All right. And let me just start off by saying that you were so instrumental in me re-entering the picture in terms of, getting to do these conventions and all that stuff. Because in my mind, Jameson was so in the past. And as an actor, I was, moving into other directions. But you brought me back. You found me. And always going to be a special guy to me.
Well, I appreciate that, John. Same here. And it's, it would be a shame not to have you out there doing your thing because, I mean, the content is so fantastic and you're so talented. So people need to see that Jameson character live on.
Thanks, bud.
So rewinding a little bit, growing up as a kid, where did you grow up and when did you first discover pro wrestling?
I grew up, not a lot of recollection in Rockland County, New York, which is a close suburb to New York City. But we were out of there when I was 5, and we moved upstate New York. And in Saugerties, beautiful Saugerties, which is a great town, for people like to go antiquing, and just a really cool town. And I would say when I was 6, 7 years old, and we had Saturday morning wrestling. That's how I discovered wrestling. It was on right after the cartoons on Saturday morning, and was always a big Mil Mascaras fan. Just like he did things differently. He wasn't this big hulking guy. He had all these clever moves, because he was he was an amateur wrestler, that kind of wrestling, and he did a lot of those moves, and he was always my favorite. And that's how I discovered it. It was on right after Saturday morning cartoons.
And prior to getting into the wrestling business, you were obviously involved in acting and some theater. Why don't you let us know some of the projects that you were a part of, back then previously to getting into the business?
Okay, so right out of college, I was on Wall Street for almost 10 years. And I was just burning out. It was just, I had some money put away, and my whole life people were telling me, you got to do stand-up comedy. You're so funny. And that became a dream of mine I could do this. And so I totally left the finance world and just went out and tried stand-up comedy. And that led me into an improv gig where it was these murder mysteries it was the late 80s, and murder mysteries were becoming a big thing where people go to have dinner and watch a murder mystery. And I got hired into one of these straight out of stand-up, and Vince McMahon happened to be in the audience for one of these shows, and I know he loved me. I could just tell the shows were half scripted and half improv, and I recognized him and saw that he was really enjoying my performance and said, I'm going to go introduce myself after the show just to say hello. Wouldn't it be great for my next acting gig to be, although this was the only acting gig I ever did, but I was starting to get the acting bug, not just doing stand-up. I wanted to maybe branch out. And sure enough, that was a Saturday night. Monday morning, one of his reps called the theater. Excuse me. said, how do we get in touch with Jameson? We're putting a show together and we need somebody with really good improv skills. So later that day, the afternoon, I went down and Vince said to me, stay in character, be Jameson, and you're going to meet Bobby Heenan. We're looking for a co-host for him for the Bobby Heenan Show. And just be Jameson. Don't let on that you're really a different guy. And
Sure.
it was like a match instantaneously. And Bobby didn't know what to make of me, but we were really good. There was a lot of chemistry there, and because I kind of understood already how to set him up, and just from my short work in improv, how to set the other guy up for the laugh line or stuff like that, and it was just heaven. And yeah, they offered me a contract that day, and that's pretty much what got things started.
So those initial conversations with Vince McMahon, what was he like? What was he like to interact with and behind the scenes?
He was always so good to me, and just and I could make him laugh at the drop of a dime, even when nothing was shooting or anything was going on, just in conversation where we were setting things up, and I just felt like what a great guy to have to think that I'm talented, like how much he could do for my career, and
Sure.
just a great guy. And I know talking to other talent that some people had their problems with him, but like he never, and I could understand that, but he always showed me nothing but love and kindness and generosity. So it was beautiful. I got nothing but love for the guy.
And that first meeting with Bobby Heenan, you said you guys meshed pretty well. Any light that you could shed on that very first
Oh
initial meeting there?
wow, what a great question. Um, yeah, no specific memories except that um, I was such a punching bag, that he had so much to say about how I was dressed and what I looked like and how he just let it all hang out, and I fed him. Um, but anything specific, yeah, it's a lot of years, brother. It's 30.
Sure.
It's 35. 35 gets us to where 1990. It's 36 years ago.
Wow. Yeah. Goes by quick, doesn't it?
Oh my God. And I'm only
So you went on to
37. No, I'm just kidding.
right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So you went on to the Bobby Heenan show. There, it only lasted 4 episodes, which
Yeah.
was a shame because it was such a good show. I loved it,
Can I?
and you had those different guests on that were kind of just everyday, real life people. Now, the question I have for you: those interesting guests that were on there, it seemed like they didn't really know what was going on. Was it scripted, or did they just kind of thrown on the set?
No script. They were just thrown
Okay,
in there. And you're right. I would say, almost all of them took themselves seriously. And, we knew how, and if I could say this, the WWF family at the time, Vince and Bobby, everybody and the writers, they set up situations. I never got a script while I was there. Never. And I'm sure I'm sure nobody got a script. But they loved the show. And it came as a bit of a surprise when USA canceled it because they were so happy with it, and and Vince was real good about, yeah, they're canceling, but we're gonna find something else for you to do. Like
yeah,
he was very much like, I don't want you to walk away from here. We're gonna find something for you, and that's when they stuck me in the audience at Prime Time, and they wrote me into every episode, every every show, doing something, usually getting in trouble with the bad guys. Um, and yeah, it was a great time. It was so much fun.
Now, you talked about Vince, you talked about Bobby Heenan. Who were some of the other personalities early on that you had first met when you first brought into the company? Do you remember any of the interactions or?
Yeah, sure. Mean Gene was great. You know, he kind of got Jameson. Like he loved when we worked together. He was a really good friend. I wasn't a good flyer, like on an airplane to go to other cities, which I didn't have to do the first year or so because we had prime time. But when it went to Raw and I had to go on the road, I was not a good flyer. And he would sit with me. I had panic attacks. He was just, not only did we have, I thought, a great, relationship on camera. I just got to go back to the couple of episodes of when the berserker threw me off the roof and I came in on the hospital gurney and he was, just we became really good friends. And Sensational Sherry became such a good friend of mine, and we did a couple of things on prime time where she beat the crap out of me when I stole the $1 million belt by accident, and um, she was great. Mr. Perfect, who nobody knew what I really looked like because I was always in character. But
Sure.
one time, and I was cut. I was in shape. I wasn't a bodybuilder, but I was always in the gym. Not always in the gym. But I was, I had some fight background, boxing, wrestling, and I was a gym guy. I wasn't a gym rat. I never spent more than 45 minutes at a time in the gym, but I was cut up pretty good. And I remember one time in the dressing room, Mr. Perfect walked in, and what a guy, by the way, and a talent in terms of the out of the ring interviews and stuff. He was talented. There weren't a lot of guys that gave good interviews or stuff that were good out of the ring. He was one of them. He was good out of the ring talking, and he was good in the ring because he was an amateur wrestler. He had that background. He knew how to fall and all this stuff. And he once looked at me, and I had no shirt and I was getting dressed, and he was like, "Jameson, what the?" And he started bringing me around to meet. Look at this guy. Look at what he looks like under that suit. Like he was special to me, and really took it hard when he passed. Um, uh, so yeah, and there were other guys. The Berserker, it was, I think, my best moment on prime time when he threw me off the roof, and the story continued for a couple of weeks. But I never got to know John. It was that quick interaction, and then he was gone, and it was just me in the hospital bed and all that. And I recently met him at a convention. What a great guy he is, and he's banged up too. All these guys. Sometimes these conventions are these shows, and I don't do many. I do maybe one or two a year, but it's a little bit depressing for me to see these guys at my age, and they're walking with walkers and canes, and they're just so beat up, and John too. But so happy to be have been a part of this whole thing, and that he's still earning somewhat of a living doing these shows, and um, so yeah, and of course Bobby. We had so much fun working together. He had a lot of respect for me, which um, probably not as much as I had for him, because Bobby could have done anything in show business. He chose
Yeah.
wrestling, but he would have made it in Hollywood. He was that talented. And I think to this day, probably the most talented actor, because they're all actors in one form or another. The most talented actor that's ever been employed by the WWF/WWE.
And going back to that Berserker skit, the skit itself, when you were thrown off, what type of, what were they using to make it look like you actually got thrown off? What were you physically being thrown off of?
Nothing. They had a dummy dressed in my clothes, and
Oh,
it looked so real. I mean, I still watch that from time to time. Uh, it was really good work. There was a writer for them back in the day. I forget his name. Oh, shoot. Oh, my God. How did I forget his name? But Kevin
Kevin Dunn?
Dunn, who's still there and is like the head of TV or something, was like his assistant. Michael Feinberg was brilliant. He had the best concept of how to use Jameson in what bit. Getting the $1 million bell stuck on me, having what was his name? The Warlord used me as a barbell. All these things were Michael's ideas, and it became so easy for me to just, yeah, that's good. I'll do that. Yeah, he didn't write any lines for me. I had to improv everything, but I was good with that. And when he left, they were searching for stuff for me to do. Kevin, who's still there, would come to me and say, "Jameson, help me out. We gotta come up with something for this episode." And Michael was never that way. Michael was, here's what you're doing. Yeah, and that was Michael. The whole thing with throwing me off the roof and bringing me back and all that stuff. And yeah, it was it was magic. I thought that how he thought of that, and it worked out so well in the filming of it. And
Absolutely. People still talk about it, to this day. And,
yeah, yeah.
when it comes to the Bushwhackers, 1992 Royal Rumble, you were right there ringside with them. And obviously, leading up to that, you had appeared in the audience, like you said, and Prime Time Wrestling. But what was it like working with Butch and Luke in person for the first time?
I felt so bad for them that there was this whole thing when with all the scandals that were breaking loose, the steroids and the sex stuff. There was a big expose in Playboy, and it was just a bad time. They decided to bag Primetime and go to Raw, where everything was shot on the road at the arenas of the shows they were doing. And, what's Jameson going to do? And there were a lot of, the old timers that were close to Vince, Pat Patterson, and that had no use for me. But Vince was like convinced, we got to keep Jameson. We got to figure out what to do with Jameson. If we're going to not shoot in the studio anymore, we're going to shoot on the road. And when he said to me, "You're going to be working with the Bushwhackers," my first reaction was, "Oh my God, I feel so bad." Like, who wants Jameson in there? But they were so good to me, and they were, I didn't know whether or not to believe them, but they were like appreciative that it was going to bring them back up to the forefront, like, and not just doing, because they kind of got, I thought, a push, and they were so funny, and it was, as hesitant as I was to, I felt like they were saddled with me, but they never made me feel that way. They always made me feel like, you're putting us over again. We're pertinent again. And they were great. They were great. They bought into the whole thing, licking my head, and yeah, some really funny stories about how all that went down. Like there were things where they were going to be matched up against the Beverly Brothers, and there was a situation where I forget where we were. It could have been New England, because we did a New England tour. We did an upstate New York tour. We did um, a Texas tour and a Florida tour. Those are the 4 tours that I did with them. But I think it was up here, either in New England or New York, where they were going to introduce me as being with them. And the thing was supposed to be, I was seated in like the first row, and I was yelling at the Beverly Brothers, cursing them out. And they came down and they tried to pull me out of the audience. And the bit was supposed to be they're going to throw me in the ring and smack the crap out of me. And Vince loved that I was in shape, that I could take a hit, and I would always say to them, make it look, even Sherry, I said, just hit me. Yeah, make it look real. I'm not, I don't want to do this if it's going to look like it's going to look fake. So beat the crap out
Right.
of me. So the bit was for them to pull me out of the audience, throw me in the ring, and then the Bushwhackers come out and save me. Well, if I tell you, they couldn't get me out of my seat because the fans were holding on to me, and they were like swinging at them, and they're like they had to back off. So the Bushwhackers came out and scared them away from. They never got me out of my seat, like from where I was sitting, scared them away, and then they pulled me out, and the fans let them pull me out, and we walked out like triumphantly. And that was the introduction of me working with the Bushwhackers for a year. I worked with them, and then after the Royal Rumble, which our relationship kind of like culminated with the Royal Rumble, I was, I was an actor, and I never grasped how much the fans really liked the character. I mean, some didn't, obviously, just like some of the employees, Vince's henchmen, didn't like the character. But I was ready. I was missing auditions because I was on the road, and we parted ways in a really good way. And it wasn't until 20 years later, like when you found me, that I started to realize that wow, Jameson was, yeah, I'm still getting calls to go do um, signings and stuff. You called me again to do this. It's like wrestling fans are awesome. They're awesome.
Yeah.
And I wish I would have had that same sense back in the early 90s when I was really looking to get out of it so I could continue my wrestling career. I mean, my acting career outside of wrestling.
And when you did those 3 or 4, tours with the WWF, with the Bushwhackers, at what point did, like, you get there at the arena? Kind of walk us through a full day when you're on the road specifically. What are you doing leading up to the show? Since you're not an in-ring talent per se, where you're going to be going over moves and that sort of thing. So, a character like yourself, what would you be doing leading up to that bell time?
Watching television, smoking cigarettes, wait until we were going to get, driven to the arena. And then when we got to the arena, we were told what was going on. There was never any kind of, um, like, the day before, even the morning of what you're going to be doing that night. It was always at the arena, like maybe an hour and a half before you were actually going out, that you're going to know what to do. And I I find that very, I take that as a compliment that Vince had nothing but confidence in me that you just tell him what he's doing and he's going to make it work. So I don't know. I can't speak for anybody else, but I don't think anybody really knew, except if they knew they were wrestling somebody. Like I knew every tour we were doing, it was going to be the Bushwhackers and the Beverly Brothers. So I knew that. And then the Genius, we had some great moments, but never talked about it before we were actually doing it. He
Right.
was good. He was another good one at the improv kind of or spur of the moment uh, kind of stuff. Yeah, good guy. We were supposed to do a signing together in somewhere near me um, last year or the year before, and it was a Saturday show, and he passed on that Wednesday, and it was just, I hadn't seen him since back in the day, and I was excited to, and I'm sure he felt the same way. I mean, he roughed me
Oh,
up at the
sure.
Royal Rumble, and um, yeah. There's been some real heartbreak as I've gotten back involved um, with loss. Hey, when you had me up to the New England Hall of Fame, Macho Man passed that Friday of the weekend that
That's right.
you had me, and that was hard to take. Sherry, she passed, and most recently, maybe the hardest I've ever been hit by a wrestler passing away was Bray Wyatt. My son had done um, Extreme Rules, where the Wyatt brothers were facing John Cena in a steel cage match in Jersey. And my son was only like 8 or 9, and he booked that on his own. I had nothing to do with that. It was a big surprise when Vince saw me come in with him that he was my son. They called a really big agency that my son was signed with in New York and said, we need your best 8 to 10 year old for this thing. And Vince didn't recognize me right away. And when he saw James, he got down on like one knee because James is, like, I don't even think he was 4 feet tall. To explain what he'd be doing. Are you afraid of the dark? You're going to be under the ring and all this stuff. And James is so cool with everything. And then he looked up at me because he was down on one knee and he says, you must be his dad. And I said, yeah, Vince, you don't recognize me? And he said, yeah, you look familiar. So I made the Jameson face, like, and he was like, oh my God, John. And he gave me a big bear hug. He says, I got to bring you around tonight. There's still people here that you know. And so I'm rambling. I forgot the original question.
Oh no, that's fine. No, we were going over how you did the different tours with the
Yeah,
WWF, and
yeah. And yeah, and I didn't, and it's so funny because I was gone probably 10 years, I'm going to say. And I started getting calls from friends that were wrestling fans and saying, hey, they're looking for you on the internet. They're looking for the actor that played Jameson. And they think it's this guy, Andy Kindler. And I was like, yeah, it's all right. I mean, I was at the point where I almost didn't care that, like, I'm not the kind of guy to step up and say, hey, I'm Jameson. It was like, yeah, let it
right.
play out. Let's see what happens. I wasn't not interested in going back to wrestling. I was kind of almost out of even the acting career because um, I had 2 small kids and needed to earn a living. And I would do a show off Broadway, and I'd take home $300 a week in the union. Um,
Yeah.
If you weren't on Broadway, if you were off Broadway, it wasn't a way to make a living. So I needed to kind of like put acting on hold. And so I wasn't in that frame of mind. I mean, I was running a nightclub when you found me, because it was big money for me. It was enough money to pay my mortgage and raise my kids. And yeah, that's how, it all got. And it's so funny how you found me. You found me because these comedians, right? They posted that they posted my picture that Jameson was going to be, and and they said to me when they found out, these comedians found out I was Jameson back in the day, they were like, "Could you get up and do 5 minutes? Could you?" So they put me on their poster. How did you find me?
Right. Well, that was part of it. I had been searching for you for, I mean, years and years.
Yeah,
You were always one of my favorite characters. So I was doing a deep dive into the internet world and just trying to track anything down. And, you'd find these little clues, but then it would kind of lead to nowhere. And then I came across that poster. There was another post by the club itself that you were working at the time, um, that mentioned something that kind of, it didn't give it away, but it kind of like, it didn't mention the Jameson character, but I don't know, there was something that it tied with. And I'm like, man, you know what? Let me give this place a call. It's probably a long shot. And so I called probably 3 or 4 different times because I was just shot down the first couple times. I'm just some random person
yeah,
calling to ask to speak to the manager. And I was shot down. They said, no, you don't work there. And, I'm doing more research. Then I'm like, I don't know. I have a feeling that he is there, and I just wouldn't give up on it. And I got different people every time that I called. And
right.
that last time that I called was, like I said, the third or fourth time they were like, oh yeah, John, he works here. And I was like, oh, okay. And they're like, he's not here right now, but we'll have him give you a ring. And that's how it all happened. I would not give up.
That's great. Yeah, I owe you so much, brother.
It was a good memory. And speaking of memories, part of the Bobby the Brain Heenan show, you kind of had a fixture on the side. There were the Oinkettes, who famously were
Uh,
the Rosati sisters. Great ladies, very close to the company. They had always been in different skits over the years. What are your personal memories of
uh,
the Rosati sisters?
just real, unlike me, real, true wrestling fans that couldn't have enjoyed their time on camera more than they did. They were awesome, and they were so good to me, and we had so much fun backstage, and um, yeah, they were pretty awesome, and exactly what they so fit in with what Vince was doing with the Bobby Heenan Show. They so fit perfectly. And they didn't care if people were laughing at them and not just with them. Um, yeah, they were awesome. They were so great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they've got a great reputation. Everybody that speaks about them speaks so highly.
yeah. And they were not actors or anything. They were fans. And it was great that Vince rewarded them in bringing them on. And they were, treated well. They weren't like, they were treated like they were valuable to the show. That's the best way I could put it.
Sure. Yeah, they would even go on to, a bunch of skits in the 80s, of course, they were involved, but even in the
Right?
90s, they were walking around Monday Night Raw in the ring with the Raw
And
cards.
and they were there before me on camera. Like when I came on to the Bobby Heenan show, they had already been on TV for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And that was '89 that I came.
So, any memories of Gorilla Monsoon, who obviously was a part of Primetime Wrestling?
Yeah. Um, Maybe the nicest guy that's ever lived that was part of the WWF. We didn't interact that much just because his persona, his on-screen personality was not. I don't know why, actually, why we didn't do more together. But a pleasure to watch, and he was so revered by the upper echelon, Vince and Pat, and um, they just everybody. There wasn't a bad thing I ever heard about Gorilla. Just the sweetest guy that and he would. It's not like we didn't know each other. Well, we didn't really know each other, but we didn't recognize he would always have such a nice warm welcome for me. Hey, Jameson, keep doing what you're doing. You're gonna be a star. Like, he was just the nicest guy you'd ever want to meet.
Yeah.
But
Well,
we
I think
didn't
he.
we didn't work together much, so it wasn't like there's not those kind of memories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When it comes to commentary, I mean, he was the straight man, where Bobby was the heel. So it would make more sense, I guess, for you to work more with Bobby
Of
because you're a
course.
baby face. Gorilla's a baby face, so it's kind of tough to do much with two happy guys, you know.
Right, right, and generally when there was, and let's not forget, oh my God, um, Sean Mooney was part of
Yes.
that whole primetime thing, and um, I worked with him a lot more than I worked with Gorilla, and I worked with Mean Gene a lot more than, and they would flip every week. It'd be a different guy with Bobby. It would be Gorilla. Vince did some shows. Vince was the straight man to Bobby on some of those primetime episodes, and Mean Gene was great. Mean Gene needed to be, I thought, more uh, out there, like in the Saturday shows and all that. He was hilarious, and great with Bobby, and set Bobby up great.
And talking about the pay structure in the World Wrestling Federation at that time, once you began to be on the road, were they taking care of your hotels, your
Oh
flights, your rental
yeah,
cars?
oh yeah. Joe, I just recently found a stack of pay stubs from them
Oh wow.
that show, like, one stub will be for my pay, and one stub will be for my expenses and all this. And I have a stack of these, and I just sold one. Um, I sold my Royal Rumble check stub. And I have all these, and I sign them. And so, if anybody is interested in having one of these, they're cheap. Um,
Sure.
I would be happy to sign. And it's funny, like, I would always just sign things Jameson. And um, I wrote with my left hand. I'm right-handed, but I would write Jameson with my left hand just to make it
Right.
look like what Jameson would handwriting would look like. But recently, I've been asked to sign both Jameson and John DiGiacomo, and John DiGiacomo I sign with my right hand, and it's
Yeah.
so yeah, those are up. I have so much stuff that so much memorabilia that like really good stuff that I have my original, not prime time, was it Raw? I have an original contract signed with my signature and Vince's signature that people have offered me upwards of $1,000 for, that I'm going to sell because I don't, I'm not going to live forever. I let my kids, I put all my stuff out and let my kids pick what they wanted to remember, what memorabilia they wanted, and the rest I'm selling. I just sold um, Bobby Bobby's book. He he personalized a copy of his book to me, and I just sold that because I read it. I'm not going to live forever. I could use the cash. So I have so much really great stuff. I sold a Christmas card from Sherry, um, that, it's sitting in a box. I didn't even know I had this stuff. It was in a box. What am I doing? And I'm still, I'm still living. I gotta pay
Sure.
bills and all that stuff. So anybody interested for, in any of my really cool memorabilia, I'm always willing to make a deal.
Absolutely. And things like that, they're just pieces of history. They really are, and
Right.
they shouldn't go lost. They should go to
Right. And
the
that's how
proper
I feel. I
homes.
feel like, whoever's interested in paying good money for this stuff, they're going to get more pleasure out of it than I am sitting in a box. I didn't even know. I swear to you, I had no idea I had the check stubs. I had no idea. I knew I had Bobby's book, but like finding Sherry's Christmas card, she would send me a Christmas card every year. We got that close because we were not the norm of the people of talent in that time. They
Yeah.
were party animals. Um, they would, after every show, they would go to strip clubs, and every once in a while, I got dragged in. Vince and Hulk used to argue over, no, Jameson's coming with me. No, Jameson's coming. And me, I would try to hide and go back to the hotel and watch TV. And Sherry didn't want to go out and party. She was, we were potheads too. So like that, we had that in common. And we weren't drinkers, we weren't druggers, and they all were. So we got close in that way that we would find a way back to the hotel without anybody knowing. And yeah, she was such a beautiful person. Um, maybe my favorite person that I met, that I stayed friends with after everything was said and done.
Hmm. Any interactions with Linda McMahon over the years?
Um, no, just a hello. Same with the kids, and the kids were babies when
Yeah.
when I met them. I mean, they were literally in grade school. Um, but just a hello. She was always nice. Um, she'd be there once in a while, not every week. Um, and no real recollection of anything poignant or a conversation about this or that. Just very sweet and hello and yeah.
And where did the original gray suit go?
Oh my God, it got shredded. Uh, if you see in that episode where I was talking about where they were supposed to pull me out of the uh, out of my seat, the Beverly Brothers,
Yeah.
it got ripped. Um, and so I couldn't wear it, but I wore it. I shot this film, brother. The funniest thing Jameson ever did. I shot this film about Jameson working out on my own. Uh, when I when I asked out of my contract after the Royal Rumble, I I was not good with traveling because I was missing all these auditions. The great thing about doing Jameson was I worked every third Monday, and that was it, doing prime time, Bobby Heenan Show, and then prime time. But once they didn't do prime time anymore, where they went to Raw, I had to be available to go on the road, and it meant I couldn't audition. I couldn't take other jobs. So I asked out of my and Vince was great about it. He totally got it. He said, "I'm going to bring you back for stuff when you have time," and he did. He brought me back a couple times. Um, Once to do that um, cover an interview on the WWF magazine. I think it was the Christmas issue '93. And I did some, like fundraisers for him. I did a Special Olympics thing for him, and he always paid me well. And but that jacket, after I left the Royal Rumble, mean, after I left WWF, after the Royal Rumble, I wore for this video I shot. And the video is about Jameson getting in shape at a gym to take revenge on the Genius for him smacking me around at the Royal Rumble. And I just watched it before this for the first time in a couple years. Hilarious. I made myself laugh, which that might sound cocky but hilarious of Jameson walking into a gym with all this equipment that he doesn't know how to use, and and I have that tape on VHS, and luckily I have a TV that you can plug these things into that I watch it, and I did convert it to digital, so it's available. I put it on. We talked about this already. So you could probably find it on what's that site again?
Oh yeah, Instagram.
Instagram. But I would love to get this out for people to see. Not looking to make money on it. It's the funniest 15 minutes of Jameson ever, and yeah, and that. Again, I forgot where we had this question start. I got to blow my nose. I got bad allergies.
Oh, no problem. Well, Jameson always blows his nose.
Oh my God, but I don't have a sock. I should have.
I've got the sock.
You know what? I've done a couple of live, what do they call those? Facebook sales, live virtuals, where somebody bought, or multiple people bought everything I was wearing: the suit, the snotty sock, everything, the shoes, and I still have all this stuff that I wore back in the day. Oh, you asked me about the suit, right? I have 2 pairs of Jameson shoes that are in, with the tape on them and all this stuff. That, I want to sell all this stuff before I die. I want somebody to have it that's going to enjoy it. My kids are over me. They got everything they need. They don't want any more of this stuff. So,
and how about fan interactions over the years? Whether it be at a convention, a fan fest, or now, obviously, when you're with the WWF, the fans probably don't recognize you. Like even Vince at first didn't recognize you. When you're out of character. But were there instances when with the WWF where fans like, wait a minute, that's Jameson?
Twice. I swear to you, twice. Once was me driving up to Albany for the what do you call? I want to say SummerSlam. It was what's the other one that I did?
Royal Rumble.
Royal Rumble, and I went up by myself. I drove up myself. It was in Albany, and they directed talent to a separate parking area. And the guy, I rolled my window down, the guy that was directing me said, "You're Jameson." That was once. The other time, I was at a Yankee game, and the game was over. And when you're leaving, it's like you're like sardines marching to get out of the stadium. And there's one row coming at me and one row I was in. And every once in a while, you got to stop because there's just so much foot traffic. And this woman looked at me. She's right next to me. She's going in the opposite direction. And she said, "You're Jameson, aren't you?" And I was like, "How the F did you know that?" And that's the only time, 2 times in all those years, in the 3.5 years I was there, the only time I ever got recognized outside of, and it's like, like Superman and Clark Kent. How could you not tell they're the same person? He had on was glasses. It was like, but I was able to transform with posture and grease in the hair and the glasses was enough that people never. But when I was, after a shower in Stamford, I came out. I didn't look like Jameson. I really didn't, and I'm not saying that in any way other than that's the truth of the matter. I didn't, scrunch up my face. I wasn't wearing glasses. I was had a really decent build. I was muscular and all that, and um, hunching over and with the suit on, you couldn't tell what I was built like. But in a
Yes.
t-shirt or normal clothes, you could say, yeah, that guy's in good shape. Um, so that's probably why I never got recognized.
Right. So touching on the promotional work that you did with the World Wrestling Federation, as you said, you appeared on the cover of WWF magazine. It was a Christmas edition with Million Dollar Man and King Kong Bundy there
Yeah,
as Santa Claus.
I have a couple of those in plastic, nice, preserved. If anybody's interested, listen to me trying to sell my
Awesome.
shit.
Oh,
Yeah,
hey, why not? I mean, let's get it out there.
yeah.
If there are Jameson fans, they're tuning in to this for
Oh,
sure.
I got
So,
so much great stuff, brother. Yeah. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry.
so how did that photo shoot go? What just kind of walk us through any memories you have from that particular cover shoot?
Um, First of all, Ted is a personal favorite of mine, and even to this day, because we have done a couple, maybe one or two signings together. But Ted, another underrated guy, I think, because he was good in the ring and he was good in interviews. A big problem, I think, that Vince and his guys had to deal with was some of these guys were, great in the ring, but they were fucking terrible with a mic in front of them. Ted was not that way. Ted was a great interview, like, yeah, staying in character and so there was that Ted and I had together because we did a couple things together. The when I stole the belt um, and uh, and King Kong Bundy was the first and only time I ever met him. Was a dream, a joy. He was really having fun doing the photo shoot. Um, so yeah, it was great. I mean, it was like nice to be back. It was nice knowing that I was going to get another check. Um, and yeah, it was two great guys. Great, so much fun to work. I wished I got a chance to work with King Kong Bundy um, in a primetime thing or something. 'Cause
Sure.
he was that sweet a guy.
And you also had 2 promotional shoots, promotional photos that would come out. They were meant for press only at the time. They would go to different outlets. They were both basically the same photo, but one was a variant from the other. One said "as seen on Primetime Wrestling," and one simply just said "your name, Jameson Winger." Any memories from that very first photo shoot where you got that character out there for the very first time? You're in the gray suit.
No, um, just Vince going through the proofs. What did they call them back then? But whatever, just Vince hysterical laughing um, at them. I gotta tell you this about Vince, and I know why there are people, former talent, that have no use for him or didn't like him. Or I get that, but Vince was my biggest fan. He really was. He treated me like gold, and everything I did, I mean, from the time before I signed the contract, from the time of that improv show I did when he first saw me, I mean, I had him beat red laughing in that show. And from that moment on, he was a fan and he treated me that way. And that's what I remember from that photo shoot was Vince looking at proofs or whatever they used to call them back then, and
Yeah.
and just being so excited, being so happy. Um, and I still have, I think, 5 or 6 original photos, like with the seafood finish. You know, the shellfish. They used to use
Yeah.
shellfish. I have of course, I have a bunch of copies, but they're certainly not worth what the originals are worth, and they're for sale too. But yeah, that's what I remember from that first photo shoot was Vince being there, and like like a mother hen, yeah, directing and just loving every shot that came out. That's what I remember.
Right. Any interactions that you remember with the photographers, Tom Buchanan or Steve Taylor?
I don't. And I met Tom. I might have met Tom up at your thing.
No, Steve Taylor was there, but not Tom.
Okay, then maybe I have them
Yeah.
confused. Um, but yeah, just nice. Yeah, I don't remember the photographers. Probably because Vince was right there and I was trying to impress him. But
Right.
yeah, yeah. But
As we got into the mid 90s there. Oh, go ahead.
no, I was going to say, but I think I have met Tom since then. Um, I think I don't know. I know what he looks like. Maybe that's just being a Facebook guy.
Sure.
But yeah, yeah.
The magazine cover was, I think, Christmas of '94, or we shifted into the '90s there. And before you wrapped up your time with the WWF, any memories with the Hitman Bret Hart?
We did a great segment on Prime Time where he gives me no. He catches me in his dressing room or something, and I think he gives me his glasses. Um, and that was pretty much it. Brett was great. I mean, he was so good in the ring. He was a nice guy out of the ring. Um, I feel like he was happy to work with me because I think the feeling was in prime time that uh, Jameson just is just going to give you more airtime. That's my take on it now. Is that if you got to work with Jameson, if you were on prime time and Jameson was part of your thing, it was going to be a bigger thing. Um, and I just felt really good. I saw him recently, and it was a little bit, yeah, yeah. He's like everybody else. We all got old, and it's not how I remember him. Um, but yeah, it was a great episode. I gotta find that. I have all in VHS. I have everything I ever did in a box from uh, Prime Time and the Bobby Heenan
Oh, wow.
Show. I have
Now, were
I have
these taped off of television, or were these given to you from the
from the
Federation?
Federation. They sent me everything I ever did. They were so good that way.
That's great.
With cover letters, I have cover letters that are probably worth money if I sign them. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
if I sign them with the cassette as a deal. Joe, I got shit. I could probably make, you know, uh, thousands and thousands of dollars that fans would be interested in. They come in my
Yeah.
bedroom, go through, tell me what you want, give me a good price. Go ahead, take it.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, the Mount Rushmore of pro wrestling, any
Oh,
era, Who would the top 4 be for you? And you can look at it different ways, personal favorites or who you think the biggest names were. There's a lot of ways to look at it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, if I had to do my own, I would. A lot of it would be personal. Um, like I got to work with Andre in one episode of Prime Time where he saved me. I forget who he saved me from. Maybe the $1 Million Man. I don't know, but I would probably go toward people that impacted my life, or for it, because they're all all good. Like I would have to throw Mr. Perfect up there just because of how I looked at him and said, this guy could go to Hollywood and be an actor. He's that good on camera. He's that good in front of the microphone. And he's such a specimen in terms of an athlete. Great athlete. One of the best athletes I saw there. Um, I would put Ted there.
Yeah.
And again, just because I'm an actor, but how well I thought he did in front of the camera with a microphone in front of him. And this is probably not. I'm going to give you 2 Mount Rushmores. So those 2. And then I'm going to give you one that we haven't even mentioned his name. That was, to me, Mike Rotundo.
Oh, Erwin R. Shyster.
Yes. Played that to a T. And I met him years later because James, my son, did the Bray Wyatt thing with John Cena. And I got to talk to Mike and get to know him a bit. Um, and it was like meeting one of my heroes almost, because I just thought he stuck in my mind as this guy could go to Hollywood. He embodied, and such a sweetheart off camera, but sold that character. Not everybody sold their character, I thought. So I would put him in there. And again, this is the Mount Rushmore. This is the personal Mount Rushmore.
Sure.
And then I'm going to give you the other Mount Rushmore. I know I'm going to leave somebody out and be pissed. Wow. It's between... he's not in there, but I got to tell you something funny about a guy I met at a convention. That was pretty good.
Yeah.
But who would I put forth? Well, if I'm doing it personally, I got to throw the Berserker in there just because of the magic that those episodes had for me. But if I had to pick my wrestling Mount Rushmore, I would say Andre for sure, and just
Yep.
out of sheer popularity and the fact that he loved me, I got to throw Hulk in there. I got to throw Cena in there.
Oh, yes.
And this is a bit of a heart thing too, but think this guy would have went on to do big things. I got to throw Bray Wyatt in there.
Yeah.
I mean, he was there for years, but I really think that guy's best days were ahead of him. And since I could only have 4, I got 8 because I got the 4 and the 4. And then managers, of course, Bobby is the best thing that ever happened to the WWF. The best thing. And Sherry was a great manager. She was so much fun to work with. She was such a chameleon in that she could turn it on so fast, being this nasty, physical, and then when the cameras weren't rolling, just a sweetheart of a woman. And let me tell you something. When she was out of that makeup and in street clothes, and a knockout, a total knockout. She was, and you know, other managers, I don't know that either anyone else could be in that category. So this is going to be a two-person manager. I'm going to think of somebody that I'm going to say, wow, I should mention them, but I just know that, like, when I mentioned Hulk, and never worked with him, but he was always there. Like, he was always.
Yeah.
I didn't work with him till we went on the road, and he was such a big fan of mine, which was shocking to me. And he would always say, "Jameson, you're riding with me tonight." And because they would go out after every show on the road, they would go out, and Vince would be like, "No, no, no, I got Jameson, and they would, and when right after the Royal Rumble in '92, they were doing a big Japan tour, and Hulk came over to me, and it might have been before the Royal Rumble because the tour was already planned, and he said to me, "Jameson, you're coming with me to Japan." And I was like, that's what was, like, for me, the finishing touch, where I got to get out of this contract. I cannot fly. I couldn't fly 3 hours without having a panic attack. And this was all before 9/11. It had nothing to do with, terrorism or anything like that. I just couldn't fly. I said, Mean Gene used to sit next to me because he knew what I was going through on these flights. And that really pushed me into going to Vince and saying, "Hey, I got this big audition." And let me tell you how good they were to me. I got an audition for Saturday Night Live, and I went to them. I went to Vince, I think. And do you know the name John Filippelli?
I do, yes.
Okay. John, when I was there, he came from the baseball game of the week. And Vince got him to come and be the executive producer for all WWF telecasts. And then after all the steroid scandal hit and all that, he went back to NBC and did baseball. But during those years I was there, great guy. Would always, pop into the studio and tell me, keep doing what you're doing, and all this. And I went to John and I said, "Is there any way I could get any footage of what I've done to WWF for this audition? Send my..." And they did. They gave me like 4 tapes that I was able to make as part of my audition, which was great, which was really good. Yeah, I so misjudged the years I was there. I was young, not real young. I was 30, maybe from 30 to 33. My age is there, but I just didn't get the whole business, and really just looked at it as another acting job. Although I built these great friendships and all that, I wanted to do other things, and I did do other things. I did films, I did commercials, I did TV shows. I had a decent career. Had a couple of auditions for the Sopranos. But thinking back on it, it was like, maybe I should have paid more attention to what was available to me through professional wrestling. I had no idea about how beloved my character was. No idea. Nothing.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, within a short period of time, you created a great body of work within the WWF. So, that was just, a few years, and you really did a lot. So,
Yeah. Yeah, great times. Really great time. Great memories. So happy I did it.
and you said you did that skit with Andre the Giant. What was he like behind the scenes?
Just a real sweet guy who um, quiet, very quiet. And he was this was 90, maybe 90 or 91, maybe 91. Um, he was already not really able to do what he used to do. So he would have this little stool with him. It looked like a cane and it unfolded to a stool. And he would sit on that. Like he just couldn't get around. And
Right.
but he was he was another guy. When the camera started rolling, it did an immediate uh, changeover into character, and that's what I remember. I also remember about shaking hands with him, and it was like putting my hand into an oversized baseball glove. It was just he was just the biggest guy I ever met, and even though he was bigger a couple years before he started to slouch and all that, he was still this massive. I never met anybody that big.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, why don't you tell us a little bit about your son? We touched on him, James Giacomo. He's been so accomplished in his early years, and even like you said, got involved with the wrestling at one point. And tell us about his career and how that's come along.
Yeah, I mean, my daughter came first, and I was not looking to put my kids in show business. She was a knockout. She's one of these girls that's never had a, an awkward, how kids, especially go through like an awkward stage or anything. This kid's been a knockout since she was born. Just a beauty, but she was shy. I never even thought about her in the business. I didn't have kids to put them in the business. James, on the other hand, by the time he was 3 years old, I was like, this kid got show business written all over him. And at 3.5, I started making calls to, contacts that I had in the business from being an actor
Sure.
about how to get him started. And everybody said, they're not going to sign him till he's 5. That's what they do. They're not looking, a 3-year-old. You can't really direct them. If there's a part for a 3-year-old, they'll get a 5-year-old that looks young that could pass. I said, you got to meet this kid. He could compete with 5-year-olds. I'm telling you right now. So I finally got to somebody who was a teacher, and said, yeah, I'll meet him. I can't make any promises, but bring him down. And he got signed right out of that class. And, was already working at 4, doing some modeling things for Toys R Us, did 2 shoots for Toys R Us, and then booked a great role on White Collar when he was 5. And then the big claim to fame was he did this commercial for NFL Play 60 with Cam Newton. Cam Newton was a rookie coming out of his rookie season, which he killed it in his rookie year. And the commercial went viral. James was so funny in it, and that's where it started. And then from there, he booked these Amazon commercials that led him into Disney, that led him into an Oscar-nominated film where he stole the film, um, like at 8 years old, and called Brooklyn. Great movie. If you haven't seen it, he's really good in that. And then like Disney, and then he became Kevin James' son on Kevin Can Wait. and just an amazing child career. Was, you know, always looking forward to the next job.
Yeah.
It was like he we went to go shoot something, and he already had something booked in. He did a great commercial with Andrew Wiggins up in Minnesota. Just count like 40 national commercial, just an unheard of child career. And then he gets this call from his agent. Well, I got the call from his agent because he was only 8 or 9, that um, WWE's looking for our best 8 to 10 year old actor. And mind you, this was a huge agency. You know, you hear the story. You want to be a big fish in a small pond, or a small fish in a big pond. He was a big fish in a big pond, because when they said send us your best 8 to 10 year old,
Yeah.
he was in a big pond, and that's who they called. And it's funny because we had to be in LA the next morning on an early flight. And this was Sunday night, a Sunday night pay-per-view, Extreme Rules. And my first instinct was to say, yeah, nah, because I know how late those things run. We can't do it. Was my first, and then I said, yeah, we got to do this. My connection there, and he's got to have this on his resume. And I'm thinking it's going to be a promo or something. Not little did I know it was the key to, the premier match of the night, the cage match between Cena and the Wyatt brothers,
Sure.
and he killed it. He killed it. He was so good. And I know a lot of people thought, some of your friends thought that, oh, Jameson got his son into the. I had absolutely nothing to do with him booking it. And it was magic when I saw Vince that night. He didn't recognize me, like I said, but yeah, the kid's got an amazing, amazing um, resume, and it's the joy. My kids are the joy that I've gotten out of life in the last 20 years. I mean, um,
Yeah.
I've had some tough times myself, like trying to make it after 10 years on Wall Street, and then trying to make a living as an actor. Was pretty rough going at times, but it's all worked out. I'm still alive, and looking forward to the next 10 years, what that's going to bring.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, what advice do you have for an aspiring actor, whether they want to go the theater route or they want to get involved in wrestling or whatever it may be?
Yeah. Yeah. Don't take things too personally, rejection too personally. Um, don't be afraid to try something that might lead to a job. Um, Theater to me, I mean, I did, as a member of Actors Equity, which is the theater union, I've done 3 shows in New York City that I couldn't make a living doing. But it was not only the best education I got, it's my favorite way of working is on stage, because it's immediate. The response is immediate. It's not like doing a movie. You got to wait till it comes out, and then if you're not mentioned in the review, you don't know really how well your thing. So I would say, don't be afraid of doing theater. Try to save some money because you're going to need it when you're doing theater. But do theater, and then follow your instincts. I mean, uh, take the easiest way in. Um, you might not like something that they want you for. Go do it. Go do it. Just get your foot in the door. Go do it. If they're going to pay you, go do it. That's the best advice I have. And don't be afraid to go take a class or two. Um,
Yeah.
you're going to pick up something that might become of value. But you gotta, you gotta keep a balance. Like, you can't spend money you need to eat with to go take a class. You got to do it when the money's there to do it. Um, and that's what I did. I did take classes. I took commercial class, and I took another class. Um, and they didn't necessarily lead to anything, but I feel like I had some skills that got me in for this job, or um, as long as don't do anything for free. That's the best advice I have. Don't do anything for free, because that's how they get you to come in with all these promises and all that. I mean, I got lucky. I because of that murder mystery company, that the improv company that I worked with, and doing stand up, I never worked for free. Um, yeah, they're gonna pay you. That's what you got to do to build to the point where you might have some money to go take a class. And classes can lead to some really, good things, to jobs, because they're usually taught by casting directors or agents or something, and say, "Oh, I like that guy." I mean, I had two auditions with The Sopranos from a show I did off Broadway. Um, that didn't pay me much money. I was literally doing 6 shows a week, and I was taking home after taxes and dues like $350. It wasn't any way to make a living, but it kept me involved. So that's the best I have.
And the Jameson name, Jameson Winger, is that owned by WWE? Do you own that
Uh,
likeness?
uh, Winger is something they added. I own the Jameson character. Um,
Okay,
so I don't think anybody would ever say anything if I used Winger as part of that.
sure. And the 2011 New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, going back to that, wrestling's most entertaining personality award, and of course, an inductee into the New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. That was your first time back in the spotlight, first time, back seeing fans throughout the day at the Fan Fest, and then, of course, the ceremony, getting to see people like Howard Finkel and people you haven't seen in years. What was that whole experience
Oh
like
my
for you?
God, Joe, I can't even tell you. That was like such an awakening. And it was one of the best weekends of my life. My jaw dropped when I was signing at the main table, at the people that were lined up to get my autograph. The whole weekend was like, what do they want with me? It was like such an awakening. And I'll never be able to repay you for giving me that. It was great. And you know what? You run such a class act, and I met some of your close friends, um, like a couple of them, um, and his wife. Oh my God, what's his name? Tell me.
Um, well, there's Ricky, Matt Kenny.
Matt Kenny
Uh,
is one of the ones I was thinking of, but really the one that I've stayed in touch with all this time on a regular basis. Um, he's married. His wife is a sweetheart. Um, oh my God, he's got a son. Wears glasses. That's a real cutie. Um,
oh, Chris DiPetrillo.
yes. Oh my God, how I
Yes.
love that kid. He's not a kid anymore, um, but what a great guy, and his wife is great, and you ran such a great show. Yeah, I've done probably 10 of these in the last 10 years. Well, maybe 10 in the last 15 years. And they're not all so professional. And that was such a weekend. Love that I got such a good response to my acceptance speech. Um,
Well,
that
first of all, I
was,
appreciate that, John. I mean, that Hall of Fame speech. We had over 300. It was probably 350 people in the room at that time for the ceremony, And I mean, you had the whole place dying. It was just, you were on fire,
Yeah,
and it was
I was.
nonstop.
What was funny was everybody had somebody induct them, and of course I had no one. And I I still remember like reading those. Remember me reading those letters, like congratulating me, these phony letters, and I have that tape. You sent me the DVD of that, um,
Yeah.
of those moments, and I still laugh when I haven't watched that in over 10 years, but I was funny. I'm
And you came
funnier
back in
than I think.
2000.
Huh? I'm sorry.
You are. Yeah, you gotta come on, take the credit. I mean, it's been a great career, and 2013 you came back, New England Fan Fest. This time we were in Fairhaven, Massachusetts,
Yeah.
and this was Fan Fest 3. A lot of people at that one, a lot of stars, and you were one of them there, and Bobby Heenan was there. Did you guys have an interaction at all during that weekend by chance?
Was he still healthy?
He was not, unfortunately. He wasn't doing too great, but he was there with his wife, still in great spirits.
I don't remember him from that. I remember him from the Big Show in Queens,
Oh yes, the big event.
the big event or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Oh, you know who had me there? What's her name? Another one of your friends. Um, Brandon Levitra.
Oh yes, yeah.
His mom, or his, not his mom, maybe his girlfriend's mom. What
Oh
was her
okay.
name?
Oh, I'm not too sure.
But anyway, yeah, and she kept my picture of of me and Texas Tornado with him signing to me, um, from Primetime, the set of Primetime. She kept it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I gave it to her for her to show people, and she never gave it back to me. But anyway,
Oh really?
that's one of what was her name? I don't know. I'm lucky I
I'm not
remember
too
my
sure.
name.
And then of course your legacy. How do you want to be remembered?
Oh, geez, just like somebody totally grateful to wrestling fans everywhere. And when I say everywhere, I mean overseas too. Um, so much love and so many. I have like 4,000, maybe I don't know, over 3,000 Facebook friends, and 90% of them are wrestling fans I've never met. And I get so many messages about how much I meant to these people's childhood. Um, they were a nerd, and how they you know, how much they loved me, and made things easier on them watching me, um, and that's how I want to be remembered, as somebody that's totally grateful. Uh, I feel like I owe the wrestling business, mostly the fans, so much appreciation, because it's changed my life. And as much as I enjoyed doing it at the time, from the moment of your phone call to me at the bar, at the nightclub, to now, multiply that by 10. Um, just so very, very grateful. And that's how I want to be remembered, as a guy who was, funny, um, always professional, um, but so very, very thankful.
And how can fans follow you?
Facebook, John Jameson DiGiacomo. And it's funny because Jameson isn't my real name, isn't my real middle name. But when I have a comedian friend whose name is Mark Riccadonna. He's hilarious. He was the guy who came into the club to book a show that was responsible for you finding me, in terms of him. So he set up my first Facebook account, and it was my name was Jameson WWF, and people still didn't believe that I was the real Jameson. They still either thought it was Andy Kindler or somebody else, and I had people log complaints to Facebook that this guy's pretending to be this guy, and they made me change my name. So I became so I used my real name, but I put Jameson in there just to. And if you go on my site and you see the pictures, you know it's me.
Well, John, this has been awesome. The man behind Jameson Winger, John DiGiacomo, thanks so much for joining us here, the All Access Entertainment Podcast. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Brother, you don't know how I appreciate and love you. I mean, you are, you're responsible for all of this. Everything that's happened to me with the character for the last 14 years is you're doing, and I'll never, ever forget that.
Just happy to be a small part of it, John, and you've been a great friend.
Big part,
years,
brother, big part. And love to your family. Love to your family.
Absolutely. I appreciate that.
Okay,
we'll certainly
buddy.
pass it along. For Jameson Winger, also known as John DiGiacomo, I am Joseph Bruen, and this has been the All Access Entertainment Podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.